All right, supposedly we are live. Hello, everyone. If you're with us here, I'm going to do the usual check to make sure that everything is actually up and running. Everything feels a
Uh,
little bit slow today for some reason, and technologically speaking. Hello, everyone. If you're with us here, I hear my own voice coming from your end, so it's probably working.
yeah, no, it's because I'm looking at the Freedom Model on YouTube, and it says that we've been live for 19 minutes, and I'm like, what?
That would be
um,
really odd. Yeah,
yeah, but it,
there,
it's
there
it's
might have been like a waiting room or something like that because of the way
yeah,
that
it's
the
some
stream
sort of
feed is.
glitch thing or something because we're good. So I
Okay.
don't know what the hell was up with that, but no.
All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. As usual, my name is Matthew Sparks. This is my friend and coworker Daniel Pelorge. We are coaches here at the Freedom Model for Addictions. On the first and third Wednesday of each month, we get together and we pull questions from the community. And we kind of go through them to the best that we can in this sort of format. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is complicated or very personal and requires additional time or coaching, and I'll let Daniel talk about that in a second. But yeah, so that's normally what we do. We typically try to hit about 5 questions, so we've got a few that we've gathered here today. Daniel, if you want to go ahead and plug the plugs.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, for anyone who's looking for help, we offer the Freedom Model for Addictions book that you can find in the audio version on Audible, the paperback version on Amazon, the digital version on Amazon, or you can go straight to our website at thefreedommodel.org to order yourself a digital copy. We also have the Freedom Model online program, and that's the entire program on video course. It's 65 videos, if I'm not mistaken. So we go through the entire program, as well as the audiobook, the workbook, a number of different things, including a monthly newsletter, a deprogramming from AA workshop, what we learned this week lessons. So there's a weekly lesson every week. And if you need further help, we offer private one-on-one coaching. So you just contact us either by email on our emails below or at our number, and we'll be happy to sit down and go through the entire curriculum, class by class, chapter by chapter, to make sure that you get all the information. Um, I think I've gone through everything.
I think you got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So if you're ready, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. This first one we actually got message to us, and it is I've now figured out that one of my whys to still drink, ironically, is now because I can, meaning control drinking. 1.5 glasses of wine daily. After 20 years of sobriety, then binging every 4 to 6 months, and living with a recovered AA husband, this feels like a treat. I had been sneaking. I had been sneak buying it and drinking it all these years. The hiding and quickly buying it did increase its value. I still want to stop forever, but struggle with the first day or two. Do you have suggestions for a 70-year-old lady?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes, and suggestions are going to apply to pretty much everyone universally. So,
Hmm.
but go ahead,
Yeah.
Daniel.
No, it's interesting because there's a lot of context to what this person is talking about, right? So you were talking about someone who's 70 years old and who has a husband who's in AA and who's been going to the rooms for basically 20 years, but that goes on binges maybe 2, 3 times a year. So uh, first off, when you're talking about like, um, I want to stop forever, you might want to like sit down and look at like what you mean by that. What are your actual motivations for stopping completely? Um, and then you point out that there's a struggle on the first day or two, right? But do you mean like that you feel like you're fighting yourself, or do you mean that there's some sort of a discomfort because you have this habit that you go into on a regular basis, right? She mentioned that she takes like a glass and a half a day, and then you don't do it. It's kind of like, in the morning, if you have a cigarette with your coffee, and then one morning you decide to have your coffee without a cigarette, it's going to feel a bit awkward, right? Like that's normal, but that's not enough to like drive someone to like feel like they're forced to do something, right? It's just obviously it feels awkward because you're switching your habit around to a certain extent. Um, but yeah, that's the first thing I thought when I saw this comment was like that whole thing about I want to stop forever, right? And I was like, okay, what's the motivation behind that, right? Like, why is this so important? And it could be a good thing. I'm not saying anything against it. I'm just within that context, I think there's something to look at because like we can see, this is someone who's been in the rooms for over 2 decades and now has a pattern that seems to be working for them because the binging obviously I say that, but I don't know, but the binging probably wasn't working too well. But now you're having, like 1.5 glasses a day, and you're not talking about it being an issue in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. But then there's like, but I still want to stop, right? So yeah, I was a bit long-winded on that, but yeah, like that's what I'm seeing is like I'd want to know more about like the motivations behind all of this, you know. Hopefully you can be a little bit more helpful than me, because
I'm kind of in the same position you are with that, and that based on our understanding of the situation here, with the few sentences that we've been given, you are a 1.5 glasses of wine daily drinker. But then you follow that up with you want to stop forever. And forever is a strong word, and we talk about drugs in the context of stopping forever, even though we don't use that word when we're talking about stopping other habits or hobbies. Like, I don't want to stop riding my bike forever. That's not something that like you would normally say. But of course, our culture is such that we always think about drug use within the context of lifelong abstinence, and like that's our measurement of success. The Speaking of sort of how we're conditioned to think about this, the other thing is the moralization of it. If you've been in the rooms for 2 decades and you have a husband who's still in AA, there may be some moral component to this. Like maybe you feel like the glass and a half, you're doing something wrong, and like you feel guilty. That could be motivating you to think that you need to stop forever, to put it down forever. But like based on what little we got, we didn't get into descriptions of any problems or anything like that. And if you like drinking a glass and a half of wine every day and it's not causing any problems, then like you can drink a glass and a half of wine every day. But we don't know what the motivation here is. Like I said, forever is a strong word to want to stop something. It's like it's almost like you would use it to describe something that's doing harm to you. Like, I want to put this down forever. I want this to stop forever. I want to stop feeling this forever. So without that context, it's kind of hard to sort of recommend what to do. But I would take a close examination of what's sort of making you like look at your own thoughts. Whenever you think, I want to stop this forever, why is that? Are you motivated by guilt? Is it things that you learned in the rooms? Is it your husband? Do you actually just, you know, we know that alcohol is bad for you. Any sort of benefits you could get from the glass of wine a day thing, I think at this point we've decided in the literature are offset by the other toxic properties of drinking alcohol every day. So like there are other healthier ways to get whatever sort of health benefits you might be seeking from the glass of wine a day sort of thing. So if it's that, you could just Google that and read into that, and that'll dispel that pretty quickly. But going back to what Daniel said, we kind of just like we don't know what sort of is motivating this the push that you're feeling to want to put this down forever. Um, so it's hard to say. Again, I wish I had more to add other than that, but like we need some additional context here. Did you? I mean, Daniel, did you have anything besides that?
Yeah, no, I think I just want to add in that at the very beginning of the book, in the introduction, we do point out that you do not want to give yourself an objective right off the bat, right? And that's because you don't have the information at hand, right? And so what we'll notice with students is that if someone starts off with a specific objective, by the end of the program, that doesn't mean that that's where they're at, right? So someone will show up and they're like, oh, I want abstinence. And then somewhere along the line, they'll realize, that cutting down is what they really want deep down, and then other people show up and they're like, you know what, I want to moderate. And somewhere along the line, they just come to the realization that it's simply not worth it. And so from now on, I'm just going to abstain, and they move on. So what I'm seeing again here is someone who's coming in with a specific outcome in mind without having gone through the process, right? And so instead of giving yourself that outcome, and I think that might be why I was a bit thrown back by the question, because I'm like, well, is it really causing a problem in your life? You know what I mean? But like, the ideally what you should do is most likely just sit down and go through our entire book, go through the program in its entirety. And throughout that process, you might come to the realization that, you know what, I'm happy with my glass and a half of wine. Or you might come to the realization that, you know what I thought I was getting out of that glass and a half, I'm just not getting. So I'm going to stop doing it, or something along those lines. But now you're coming into this with a preset outcome, without really having much information. So, like I was saying, I think that's kind of like what jarred me. I was like, hold on a second. It's like, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that they would be more than happy if that's all they do is like have a glass and a half of wine in the evening at home, you know. But for some people that is a problem. So yeah, just go through our program and make sure to ask us as many questions as possible. And of course, if you want to go through one-on-one coaching, that's what we're here for. So yeah,
Right.
and just finish with that.
We'll be able to utilize the context there. We'll be able to pull so much more information out, and because
Yeah,
the
exactly.
information is universal. The truth is the truth. However, how someone receives it might work better one way than it does with another person. So that's how we can sort of take your context and sort of personalize the information and provide it in a way that might make it register more. Because I tell people all the time, there's a difference between reading the book and thinking, yes, this logically makes sense, I understand, and then it registering like on an emotional level, like on a deeper plane, basically, because you can understand something logically, but not on a deep enough level for it to sort of propel you in a different direction. And sometimes it takes some additional work, like we have a workbook or like the online series, or maybe it takes it being the information being put like in a different way, maybe some personal anecdote, something specific like that. It's impossible to know until you talk to the person individually, pretty like sometimes extensively. But if we were going to have steps, step one would always be to read the book. Um, and it says in the preface that you should read the whole book before you make a decision about this anyway. Like
Mhm.
Daniel says, like you don't want to set a goal or an objective yet because you're probably still using the wrong information.
Oh, hold
Um,
on. I'll be right back. I got a phone call for some weird reason. Well,
I will go ahead and mute him. But yeah, that's what I would say. It's just that there's a reason within the preface that we tell you not to set an objective just yet because the framework under which you are operating is informed by probably heavy bits of misinformation. So, um, Other than that, I think that's about as much as we can probably provide given the information that we have available. So, Daniel, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and move on to the next one.
Yep. Sorry about that, guys. Um, I'll take care of that phone call later.
All right. So, the next question is, so I screwed up the other week and posted, quote, I hope I die tonight, end quote. A lot of people reached out to me, understandably, including some AA members I used to go to meetings with. This 70-year-old man stated that, quote, I needed to go to a meeting, end quote, even though I didn't even think about drinking that night until he mentioned AA. It's like, what the F does my suicide BS have to do with AA? I'm not drinking, and alcohol is not a part of my life anymore. Anyhow, thought I'd share that since I saw your post about the Q&A. This is another sort of very personally injected one, and there's a lot of places we can go with this that I'm thinking of immediately. But I'll go ahead and let you start, Daniel.
Yeah. This was sent to me in private message by someone that I actually met in an AA group a while back. And so now he's part of the Freedom Model on
That's great to hear.
the online group. And yeah, and like you can see in the post, he's no longer going to meetings and stuff. But he sent me that because, of course, when he posted the original comment, I saw it and I reached out to him and he was like, no, I'm good. I've talked to some people, blah, 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 but then he sent me this today and I was like, oh, this is so representative of like AA, right? Where it's like, because he's like, oh, what does this have to do with my drinking? It has everything to do with your drinking, because the whole idea of AA is that you're an alcoholic, that you're some type of person that's different from all the other humans, right? Which are called normies. And so everything that you're living is this special experience that only alcoholics live, or that, like some normies might live them, but they, for some weird reason, when it comes to alcoholics, like it's a big deal, right? So of course, what's the solution to that? It's God, it's AA, right? The problem is always, it always comes down to the problem being your alcoholism, right? So if you're depressed, well, that's because you're an alcoholic, right? If your life isn't working out, that's because you're an alcoholic, and so on and
It's
so forth.
unmanageable.
Yeah, exactly. It always comes back down to that core part of your being of being an alcoholic. And so, of course, what's the solution? Well, there's only one solution, and that's the spiritual awakening. That's the steps. That's God. And so it's absolutely normal that this person's going to tell you, well, if you're feeling like crap, you have to, you obviously haven't been going to meetings. Now, there's something that's interesting, and we talked about it, I think it was last time or the time before, about like, if you have a life problem, and this is something that I used to hear all the time, it's just do 90 meetings in 90 days and it'll be resolved.
Yeah, it was last time or the time before that, I remember.
Yeah. And it's so true, because most problems don't last 90 days. Like you're going to resolve your life problems somewhere along the line. So when you get to the 90th meeting, right, it's like, well, the problem's solved. There you go. Well, it had nothing to do with the magic of sitting on your butt in 90 meetings. It had everything to do with the fact that it's been 3 months. Right. So if it was a problem that you actually felt like you needed to do something about, you had 3 months to resolve it. So there's a pretty good chance that you've resolved the issue. So yeah, like it's absolutely normal that someone reached out to you and told you that, you have to go to a meeting, because that's the mantra. Anything that's like not working for you, well, you need a meeting. It's kind of like one of those, one thing I laughed so hard when I heard this the first time. It was, if you love everybody at the meetings, you haven't been going to enough meetings, right? So it's this general idea that you have to go to meetings until you're completely sick of going to meetings. And once you're sick of going to meetings, well, you have to keep on going to meetings because you're sick, right? So it's this perpetual meeting deal. So
it's always circular, man.
Yeah, for people in the outside world, I can understand when I'm talking about this that it sounds totally crazy. And for steppers who are in it, sometimes they'll say they'll put this point, they'll be like, oh, you're exaggerating, or that's not exactly how it is. because they're seeing things from their viewpoint of someone that's in the cult, right? Because as soon as they walk away from that and spend any amount of time in the real world, and then they look back at those experiences, they always confirm and they always go, yeah, I can't believe, and it's like that for every single cult survivor, right?
Yes.
If you look at videos for anyone that's left any type of cult, they always say the same kind of stuff. I can't believe that I did that. I can't believe that I believed that at that time. I can't, like how messed up was I
Right.
to actually believe this stuff, so
And
yeah.
you're not messed up, by the way. You're a you're a victim of a monolith that's been constructed and it's presented as the only solution. So like anyone that feels guilty about having quote unquote fallen for this, like don't like we all did at
Yeah.
some point or another, like to some degree. That's why the freedom model has to exist. Like that's why the book is 460 something pages long. It has to be because there's so much.
Yeah, no, the
So
trap is so huge that it's pretty much impossible to not fall into it.
right.
And it's not a question of being smart or not.
Right.
Um, you know,
People that have never gone to meetings in their life and don't even know that AA exists have fallen for this stuff and they just don't know it because it's in movies and it's in how we talk about drugs and it's Matthew
mhm.
Perry's talking about it on television and everywhere else. So,
Yeah. Well, just
sorry, I
consider.
interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, just consider if you were to take a poll on the street with people and ask them, well, if your friend had a serious drug or alcohol problem, what would you do? And the vast majority of people would say, well, I'd send them to AA. And this is people that have never been to AA, that know nothing about AA. In fact, I'm gonna plug this in because I was watching this last night and it was really cool. Mark and Michelle were on Monica Richardson's YouTube about AA and cults, and the title I believe was "Is AA the biggest cult ever?" or something along those lines. But it came out yesterday, so for guys who wanna know a little bit more about that stuff, like I said, Monica put that up yesterday. Mark and Michelle are on there, and she also uploaded her 13th Step documentary. So that's officially on
Right.
YouTube now. You used to be able to
That's
find it on
excellent.
Tubi or Amazon or whatever, but now it's officially on YouTube, so people can share it. So
I
yeah,
may
maybe it was.
be incorrect in some regards on this because I haven't looked into it in some time, but like the last time that I looked, as far as like because there isn't universal agreement in academia about what qualifies something as a cult, but like there's a lot of crossover. There's a lot of things that people do agree on as like cult characteristics. And the last time that I investigated this, which was, maybe sometime in the last couple of years, AA meets all the criteria every time that I
Yeah.
look. Like it's just undeniable. So some people say that Bill W doesn't really qualify as like the figurehead Jim Jones type. He's not presenting himself as like a messiah, but like the guy undeniably had like a messiah complex. Like
he's
we
he's the
can get into
most
that.
he's the most well-known anonymous person of history.
Right.
Like people who have never been to a meeting know who Bill Wilson is, right? Like, yeah, is an obvious grift. And we did have something, someone that brought that up I don't know, about a month or two ago, that was asking about that did he really believe his own nonsense, or was he just a massive grifter? And I'm of the opinion that it's a mix of both,
I
right?
think so too. Yeah, I would agree because like he didn't drink, right? I mean, he did LSD and some other weird stuff, but like he died crying out for whiskey, but he hadn't drank.
Well, as far as we know, but there's a lot
Right, as far as we know.
there's a lot behind the story. I don't know how much evidence there is for it,
Yeah.
but I
And we don't
remember
want to
on
fly off on a tangent anyway.
Wiki, I think it is Wikipedia, which is obviously like a really horrible source for anything. But there was something about how his grandfather climbed some mountain high on mushrooms and quit drinking. And so, this whole like white light experience is actually something that's part of his childhood history. Um, Anyways,
That's
according to this
wild.
one thing that, like I said, I don't think there's much. there's a lot of backing, but unfortunately, a lot of this
Right.
stuff, there's not much evidence to back stuff up either way, right?
Right. We don't
Um,
really need it anyway. We have all the evidence in the world that this is wrong and they're wrong. So that's
yeah,
good
no,
enough for me.
exactly. But to get back to all of
Right.
this, the fact is, you were told to go to a meeting because that's what cult members are supposed to do, right? As soon as there's any type of life issue, you are supposed to revert back to the cult and get the holy answers from the book, right? It's that simple. And if the answers are not in the book, well, then you talk to your living book, which is your sponsor, who is all knowing and who is only confused about his own personal life, because as soon as it comes to your life, he can perfectly manage everything. So, anyways, yeah, that's my commentary on that. I find it quite sad that that's the go-to, but yeah, it's been the go-to for a long time, and expect to receive more of that if you post more stuff and you have people like that in your timeline.
Right. A lot of Daniel said a lot of the most of what could be said about this. Just before we move on to the next one, I wanted to say, especially because this is someone that you've spoken to, I'm glad that you're okay, um, and that you're alive, um, and that people do reach out and care, because generally there are people that do care. So I'm glad about that. And just the next thing being that, which Daniel already talked about, is this is the default MO of AA members. It just is. Like, I know so many people whose marriages collapsed or flunked out of school, or like any number of life issues, and they attribute them is because their meeting attendance suffered because they were attending to real life things, or they weren't working the steps thoroughly enough, or they weren't calling their sponsor enough. And obviously it's a misattribution, but not only that, it's and this is one of the reasons that it's so harmful. It's a distraction from actual problems, and it prevents you from fixing them, and it takes away your belief in yourself to resolve your own issues, which is something that you just fundamentally need. It's horrible what it does to people.
Mhm.
Horrible, absolutely horrible. So I'm glad this person is okay. But it's not surprising at all that someone would reach out and be like, "You need to go to a meeting." That was the answer that I got every time, like back whenever I was still on and off fighting with these people and in and out of their rooms. That, like, if I was really sad or had something bad happen, people would be like, "It doesn't matter what it is. You need to get your ass to a meeting." And I would just
Yeah,
groan and then be like, "Of course, that's the answer."
yeah. Well, there is another answer. Did you pray about it? Right.
Did
Now
you call your
that's
sponsor? Did you pray
yeah,
about it? Did you go to a
that's
meeting?
that's the first thing, right? Did you pray about it? Right. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Let's just jump on to the next question,
yeah.
or else we're gonna
I
be
don't
here.
want to. I don't want to tirade.
Yeah, we're
So
we're gonna be here all night.
next one, which is shorter. Um, Motivation to stop drinking due to negative health issues, even though you still really like to drink.
Hmm.
I guess what this person is saying is they're asking for motivation on stopping to drink, which
Yeah.
is the wrong approach to the issue. But I'm sure you're aware of that, and I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was looking at was, like, first off, you're asking to go in a positive direction based on focusing on negative stuff, right? So on the negative consequences, right? So that's not how the PDP works. So for this person, I would highly suggest starting off at the very beginning of the book and going through it, because the fact is that the negative health issues is something that needs to be flipped around, right? So if I'm not drinking, what are the benefits on my health, right? And so that's something that you can have to start focusing on rather than looking at the negative side of things. And also, I really like to drink. Well, why do I really like to drink, right? What are the motivations behind the drinking? And am I actually getting those benefits, or are those benefits perceived based on my past experience, right? Based on the context that I framed this use in. So by playing around with that, that's what's going to switch stuff around to the extent where, like, you don't have to stop liking drinking completely, right? You just have to see more benefits in the non-drinking than in the drinking in
Right.
order to choose that, right? So by increasing the perceived value of the benefits of the non-drinking and decreasing the perceived benefits of the drinking, that's what's going to flip stuff around, as you know already. Um, but yeah, for this person who's listening to us, I would suggest going through the book and going through the entire program bit by bit, because everything's going to become clear to you as you go through it, right?
Right.
Because yeah, what I'm seeing here is a focusing on negative, trying to get some positive energy by focusing on negative stuff, and not focusing at all on why I engage in that behavior in the first place, right?
Right.
So all of these things need to be addressed. You could sit down and go through the book or the online program, or of course, contact us and sit down and do all of this one-on-one.
Right.
So I'll just throw it back to you. That's my take on it.
Okay. Also, if you guys can hear me typing, I'm sorry. I'm writing my own points just so I don't miss anything. Normally, I don't do that, but my memory is just not as sharp today. Um, we have, as Daniel already talked about, and I say this with people a lot, the freedom model is not about losing things. It's not about giving things up. It's not about forfeiture. It's not about abandoning something or resisting something that you still like to do. The freedom model is about getting things that you want. It's about moving towards happiness, or whatever it is that you want to move towards. This is not a program. It's not even a program. It's just the truth. This we're not we're trying to go towards something, not away from something. We want to be positively driven in a direction, not negatively running away from something. That's always going to be what ends up driving you anyway. So, if you find yourself drinking time and time again, it's because you're being positively pushed in that direction because of your attachment to alcohol, which brings up the next question. You say that you still really like drinking. It's perfectly okay to like drinking. It's not immoral, totally fine. However, if you got health problems, maybe not the best idea. If you have physicians telling you you need to stop or slow down, it's probably a good idea to listen to them. So you need to take a close examination about why it is that you really like to drink. What sort of role do you think that it's filling? What sort of benefits do you think that it has? So, like Daniel said, we're not looking at the costs here. Everyone wants you to look at the costs. You already do that. Rehabs do that. Meetings do that. We're trying to figure out why you want to do something. What are the benefits? What are the positives? And then based on what that list is, figuring out how many of those are actually real, and then ones are there better ways that we can get them? Can we get them from something else? Um, you know, so because so much of the experience of drinking or reasons that people drink are influenced by people's beliefs and their surroundings and a million other things that would take a long time to get into. This is all in the book, so as Daniel said, again, make sure you read the book. It's all going to be in there, but the last thing I got, and this I read this somewhere else a long time ago, and it pretty much applies to pretty much anything. Looking for motivation to start or stop things is always the wrong way to do something because motivation is a fleeting experience. It is a temporary boost and euphoria or drive or whatever it is that you want to call it that's going to go away. And whenever you're left without that, what are you going to do? Wait for it to come back? Who knows when it's going to come back? So that's just it's the wrong approach to just ask, like, okay, I'm gonna sit here and wait for the motivation to show up, or like be provided with like the perfect reason to do something, to start or stop something, or what have you. Like, you're gonna end up doing what you want to do, what you're being driven towards doing. So what you need to figure out is why you're being driven towards the thing, and then explore what the reasons are behind, your drive to do the thing. That would be my encapsulation of it. Daniel, did you have anything to add to that?
No, no. I know this person just messaged us in the group to ask where the live was, so hopefully they're watching it as we speak.
Okay, cool. It should be in the group. I saw it there, and I got notifications on my phone that it went live. Um, you guys can also watch it on YouTube. It's live on the YouTube channel, so make sure you're subscribed there as well. Um, so if you're watching, there's your answer. Two answers, kind of the same thing, but two versions of the same answer. Do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's get to the next one.
Okay, cool. Um, this person says a bit of a long one. Just looking at it, there's no need to apologize. At first glance, it's not that long. We've gotten way longer ones, but it's okay sometimes. I'm very long-winded, and so is he. It takes a long time to say things sometimes. I've had a bad couple of weeks since the last post. Excuse me. For background, I live alone. Recently split up from my partner, and I'm eating too much. Also, I'm not working in the moment, and I'm struggling to get a new job. Coke has ceased to give me any pleasure for 2 years, yet I'm still making a choice most days to have a couple of lines. It makes my heart race, my eyes flicker, headache, etc. Any ideas why I might be doing this? Chasing that elusive high, maybe? I think I do it to punish myself for the perceived failures above, but I just can't seem to make the right choice. There's a bunch of stuff in there that I would correct right out the gate, but I'll let you go ahead,
Mhm.
Daniel. And the
Yeah,
person is watching. She is on YouTube. She just confirmed, so that's good.
okay. Yeah, no, so there's like you said, there's a lot in here, but I think a few of the things that struck me, well, first off was the second to last paragraph where this person says, Coke has ceased to give me any pleasure for 2 years, yet I'm still making a choice most days to have a couple of lines, right? And so there's something important to understand is that there's a myriad of benefits that people can perceive in order to use substances, right? So there's you don't have to find substance use enjoyable in order to be driven to continue doing it, right? It's like what we were talking before the show. If you look at pain relief patients, for example, you know, I know one guy who he takes this pain medication and he has a very hard time functioning properly. He doesn't like the way it makes him feel. It makes him feel groggy. He doesn't function very well. He really doesn't like it. And if it was up to him, he would not take the medication at all. Now, the problem, of course, is he's tried to do that. And when he doesn't take the medication, he's not functional at all, right? So basically, he doesn't take anything, he's bedridden. He takes drugs, he's completely messed up, but at least he can get out of bed and function somewhat, right? So the point of this is that there's a lot more benefits to substance use than this general idea of pleasure, right? So the fact that you're not finding it as enjoyable on many levels as you did years ago, that's obviously not enough to detract you. Now, this person did point out that there's a couple of things, right? So I'm not going to dissuade you from your intuition because you could obviously be absolutely correct on this. But I think this very last sentence I think is extremely revealing, right? I
That was the one I was
I can
thinking would
just
go.
seem to make the right choice, right? And so, no, again, there is no right or wrong choice, right? Like you're making the choice that makes sense to you on one level, but that doesn't make sense to you on another level. And so you're sitting down and you're judging that choice and you're going, oh, that's not what I should have done, right? Which comes back to what we were talking about before, where, you know, everybody kind of knows what they should do in life, but that's not the way people function in life, right? We kind of go with what we feel like doing rather than what we should be doing. Like if what I should do worked, right? If that was the way to approach things in life, well, every single diet on earth would work, right? Because everybody knows, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, and then
Probably
they
shouldn't eat this
just,
hot dog, but
yeah, they just do it, and that's that. But obviously, humans are a little bit more complex than that. You know, there's a little bit more nuance to it, and so yeah, it's, you know, this idea that, you know, oh, I should be doing something different. That's that's because you're stuck in this model of ambivalence, right? Where it's like I want one thing, but I also want this other thing, and I can't have both. And so, you know, I'm kind of feeling like this inner conflict about what direction I should go. But anyway, so that's really my commentary. Every single time I see this idea of making the right choice versus making the wrong choice, right? Because it really, that it's an entire narrative that drives this
yep.
idea that people should be doing things a specific way, right? And you know, that's just a moralistic viewpoint. That's subjective. That's like everybody gets to have their own opinion on that. Um, so yeah, I really wanted to point out those two things, right? This idea that, like, yeah, first off, pleasure, right? So yeah, there's obviously a lot more going on than the simple idea of pleasure, and that a lot more going on is what's driving the behavior. And then this idea that you're making the wrong choices, right? So I would be like, first off, you're not making the wrong choices. Okay, you're making choices that you're finding problematic. I get that, but you know, those choices are the right choices based on wrong information, which is completely different. So that's what we're about. We're about helping people to update the information in order to be able to make clearer choices, right?
Right.
Which is a lot different than right choices versus wrong choices. Yeah, no, when the waters are muddied and you can't really see what's going on, yeah, you might not make the clearest choices. You know,
Right.
so let's clear things up, and then from that premise, you can move on. So yeah, I'll just hand it over to you on that.
So a few things here. So we have the context, or at least a bit of context, was that the person lives alone, recently split up from the partner. They add in that they're eating too much. They're also not working at the moment and struggling to find a new job. So it kind of sounds like you're going through a rough patch. Um, you lost some things. You're looking for things. You're in sort of a limbo state, which are my least favorite periods in life, where you kind of have to figure some stuff out, some new directions. You got to be okay with being alone. There's a whole bunch going on, and I assume that I don't. Maybe I'm injecting too much here. The eating too much is just you're adding an emphasis on the idea that you're trying to do things to fill a void or make yourself feel better about the situation, or that you're not taking care of yourself, or something like that. So in my mind, I have this picture of you, um, where you're struggling to find a job, you're recently lost your partner, your diet's not looking good, which is probably not making you feel that good physically, which is definitely not going to help. So maybe you're not feeling real good about yourself. So one of the things that drugs can provide for us, and anything can do this, once we've done it enough, is it becomes like almost like an anchor. It's like a sense of security. It's something you've done. You've done it for a long time. It's familiar to you. Even if what it's doing to you is uncomfortable and bad, you still know it. It's predictable. And even in a way, things that are abusive, bad, or toxic can feel safer to you than doing something new or trying something new. It's one of the reasons that people can get stuck in cycles of abuse. Is because moving into the unfamiliar can be terrifying. Um, So sometimes it feels safer just to do the thing that you've done over and over and over again, even if it's not doing much for you. So, like Daniel said, the high doesn't need to be there in order for you to have a reason to be driven towards doing this. Um, so if you've done this for a long time, it's like it's you've implanted it as sort of like a staple in your everyday life. It's like you talked earlier. I don't remember if it was on or off stream. I think it was on stream about having a cup of coffee with a cigarette, and then one day not having the cigarette with the coffee. It feels like something is missing. Like some fundamental component of your process is now gone. And it sounds like you're in a state of life where your partner is not there. You're lacking some sort of stability or direction because you're struggling to get a new job. So things are missing, and you're trying to fill that void that you're feeling from feeling like you've lost something or that there's some absence in your life. Unfortunately, this is not going to work. Drugs don't do this. We talk about this a lot. This is not an effective means of dealing with the problem. Although the way that society talks about drugs and the powers that we imbue them with can make them appear, even temporarily, as effective band aids or distractions for whatever the problems that we're facing are. Um, at the end, you also talk about punishing yourself for your perceived failures. Like, I'm not your therapist, and this is not my domain, but I used to do a whole lot of punishing myself for perceived failures and like not being where I should be in life or not having X, Y, and Z and comparing myself to others. But like that is never, ever, ever going to help or produce the sort of conditions that will positively drive you towards something. Like you're at where you're just at, or where you're supposed to be at this point in time. You need to look at everything around you and your options with the most clear lens that you possibly can, which involves something like reading the freedom model so you can get an accurate assessment of your relationship with your drug use, and then decide to take action towards something that you feel is right for you. And even at first, like it may not feel good or motivating or exciting at all. Sometimes you just have to take the steps to get started, to get the ball rolling. Um, so, in a nutshell, it kind of just sounds like you're in a crappy place in life. The coke use is you kind of holding on to something that is familiar to you, even if it's not giving you the high that you want. It is a source of familiarity, and maybe in the past it felt like it was giving you something that you wanted. But you gotta, at some point, you have to wake up, and you gotta look around, and it has to be clear, and you gotta take account of everything that's going on, what your relationships to your drugs are like, what your relationships to your life and your habits are like, and to do something else for you, for positive change, like we talked about earlier. You don't want to be running away from something, you want to be moving towards something. So I know that's a lot, but I relate a lot to this because I've been in this position a few times in life where it feels like everything just detonates or melts away, and suddenly you don't have anything, or at least it feels that way, and you're desperate for something familiar or just for something to like hold on to or to make you feel like things are going to be okay. And I deeply empathize with anyone that's stuck in that position or feels like they're stuck in that position. So I know that you probably don't want to hear about the positives of this, and maybe it annoys you when people do, but all of the most important lessons that you're going to learn and important bits of self-esteem that's going to be built come from things like this, from emerging from experiences like this, and from building things out of nothing or from the ashes or however you want to describe it. So, the good news is there's nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing wrong with you. Bless you, Daniel. But yeah, like I said, I know that it's a lot, but good will come from this and things will get better. Daniel, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, no. Um, we got a last one.
Yeah.
Um, it's got a lot to it.
Well, let's start banging that out then. So let's see. All right, for our closer. I happily stopped using for a good 2 months after reading the Freedom Model. Um, there was no deprivation, no lack of anything. I felt very, very free, even though the thought of using used to make me feel sick. But now I've started using it after 2 months, thinking I could use it moderately, and it's very difficult to find reasons to stop or to use moderately. I am positive I want to stop it completely, but I'm finding it difficult to do so. I do not want to reread the book again as it took me several months to finish. I read it very slowly, consciously trying to absorb more. I did not make notes, sadly. I remember reading in the freedom model that you can't moderate, that it's better to quit completely. Is that right? Where can I find notes to the freedom model, or do I have to reread it again? If you don't want to reread it again, you can sign up for coaching. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
I'll read it to you, or we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But like you're gonna have to
Well,
deal with the
technically,
material.
you'd still have to read it again, though,
Yeah, you would still have to read it again.
to go through the home. You still have to go through the homework.
And it's not a good use of your time for me to just read it. Yeah, to like for this coaching sessions to be literally
Yeah.
me reading you the book. So
Yeah. But
I'll let you
technically,
go ahead and start this one.
no, but you could go through the audio version, right?
We do have an
Like,
audiobook if that makes it easier.
yeah. Yeah. But there was a lot in here, right? So right off the bat, for whatever reason, the person found, obviously there was some level of motivation to sit down and read the book, especially if you say that it took you months and months to go through it, right? So there was a level of motivation there. But the person did go through it, and for whatever reason, they decided to stop. And then later on, what were the motivations for stopping? We don't know. And the same thing here, after 2 months, I started to use again. Again, we don't really have the reasons, the motivations why the person started to use again. And this is the kind of stuff that, yeah, we would really hone in on that when it comes to coaching. But it's interesting here that the person says, they talk about thinking that they could use moderately, right? So there is like this idea about, above loss of control that hasn't been debunked, right? So if you don't want to read through like the entire book again, I'd suggest starting with Appendix A, right?
Okay.
To
You
really
beat me to it.
focus, yeah, to focus on the loss of control stuff, right? Because it's very difficult to find reasons to stop or use moderately. Yeah, I get that. I'm positive I want to stop, but I'm finding, well, that's why we have an entire program. And then at the very end, this was, I remember reading in the freedom model that if you can't moderate, then it's better to quit completely. No, right? Because everybody can
Yeah,
moderate.
no one can't moderate. That's the
Right.
first
So
sentence in the preface.
that's not what we say. At the very, very, very beginning of the book, what we say is that if you believe that some people lose control, right? That there are some people that cannot moderate. If you believe that, right? If you believe in the idea that there's this invisible line, that if you had too much to drink or too much to snort or too much to smoke or injected too much or whatever, if you believe that stuff, the only safe option is abstinence. That's what we're saying, right? Because, like, if you believe that some people fall off the wagon, like fall off the boat or the wagon, whatever you want to call it, they completely lose it, right? You do not want to be one of those people, right? And by believing that those people exist, you're mentally setting yourself up for the possibility of you being one of those people, right? So right off the bat, that's what we're saying. If you believe that there's a group of people called addicts, there's a group of people called alcoholics, that some people cannot moderate their substance use, that they have no control over the amount of substances that they take. If you believe there is such a person, even if you don't believe that you're part of them, it's still a really good idea to stay the hell away from the drugs, because back in the day in AA, they used to say, this didn't happen to me yet, right? And the yet it stood for you're eligible to, right? So it's like, well, it didn't happen to you yet, but it's most likely
It's
going to
coming.
happen.
Yeah, it's right down the road,
Exactly.
or it's in the parking
So
lot.
yeah, so the point is we're not here to reinforce weird fucking push-ups in the parking lot ideas. But if you believe that some people have these really, really bad things that happen to them when they do drugs, yeah, it's probably a good idea that you don't do drugs, right? That's what we're saying. It's common sense. If you think that you have a high likelihood of getting in a car accident if you drive, just walk. Okay. It's the safest bet. You'll make it fine. Just walk or take a bicycle. Just don't get in a car if you don't know how to drive, and you think that most people are prone to getting into car accidents. Like, it's just not a good idea. So that's what we're saying. But yeah, going through the whole thing, um, you know, that's why there is coaching, really, because you don't necessarily, you did find some nuggets in there. This person did find some good use in there,
Right, you
but
stopped
for
for 2
whatever
months.
exactly, but for whatever reason, that did not necessarily crystallize, or some of the mythology surrounding substance use was not debunked, right? And so there was this point where, you know, having a drink or having a drug, whatever it was, seemed like a really, really good idea. And you went back to that. And it seemed like such a good idea that you just decided to keep on doing that, right? So that's stuff that obviously hasn't been debunked. And yeah, if you really don't want to go through the book on its own, that's what we're here for. That's what for the online program is for. And yeah, you can get the audio version. I do that with a lot of books, actually. So that's my
Whereas I
take.
can't. I can't do audiobooks at all for some reason. I have a horrible time paying attention.
Yeah. Well,
I can do
I found
podcasts just fine.
you have to be doing it in a set. Well, for me, in my case, I have to do it in a setting where I'm stuck doing something that doesn't require me to think, but I'm stuck doing it, right? So like if I have to like use public transit, for example, if I got to go the other side of town, that's perfect timing to listen to an audiobook, right? But if I'm sitting at home, like, no, then I'm going to have all these other distractions that, I'm like, oh, I don't feel like sitting down and listening to an audiobook. So yeah, I get what you're saying. You have to fit it within a certain context in order for it
Right.
to work. In my case, anyways.
Understandable. Um, oh, were you done before I take?
Yeah, I'm done.
I
I'm
don't want
done.
to hijack you. Okay. Yeah, there was a lot here. This is quite a conclusion. I want to reiterate the coaching thing again because, again, despite this being longer than your average question for the Q&A session, like we just don't have the information to give you a specific answer that will be most helpful to you. Um, so I don't know where your hang up is. You clearly got something out of reading the book the first time, as Daniel pointed out, but I don't know what it is that's not clicking or sinking in. Earlier, I spoke about, and this may be exactly what's going on, where you read through something and you're like, that makes sense, that makes sense, that makes sense, blah, blah, blah. Okay, done with the book. But it doesn't sink in like emotionally or whatever you want to call the deeper level. It doesn't sink in a way such that it's powerful enough to really um, undistort your perspective on your relationship with the drugs and allow you to make changes or feel that you're not powerless or whenever the problem here may be. Um, I'm just You said you started using again, so you went back after 2 months. So you stopped completely for 2 months. Felt great, no deprivation, and you went back. So there was some motivation for going back. There was some reason for going back to the drug. I don't know how your life was going without it, but you said you weren't feeling deprived or anything. So you said, and that you were very free. So it seemed like it was going okay. So there was some reason that you went back. Like an example of one of the questions that we would get into would be, what is that reason? What are the underlying beliefs behind that reason? How did you come to know that or believe it, etc.? Like, there are layers and layers here that could potentially exist that we could get into. And the book is already 460 plus pages long. Like, there are a lot of potential places that you could be hung up, or ideas that you could get stuck on, or reasons that it's not sinking in, or maybe there's something about your personal background that makes it feel like this somehow isn't going to work for you, or you're like, you truly are the one broken person in the world that like can't do this, or it could be any number of things. You're gonna have to consume the content again. I hate to be the bearer of that news, but you're just gonna have to consume the content again. And everything in life worth doing is worth sinking a good amount of time into anyway. So if this is something that you really want, then it'll be worth it. Even if you have to read the whole book again, I promise it'll be worth it. Um, I reread the book for fun, so
Yeah.
um, it's certainly it's not going to hurt you for sure, but you're going to have to consume the content again. Um, Audiobook also a good suggestion there. I hadn't thought of that. So if that makes it easier, I know it does make it easier for some people. Some people like to read the book and listen to the audiobook at the same time, and they say that that helps it like really set in. And make sure that they're really focused in on the words that are on the page and thinking about them. So that would be another suggestion. My girlfriend does that. I don't understand how, but she does. Um, but as far as the information that we have available, there's not a whole lot more that I think we can offer you, my friend, unfortunately. So that's sort of where I would leave that. Daniel, did you have anything else?
Yeah. No, I just remember I had one guy when I was still working at the sober living place. I had one guy who was interested in this stuff, and he got a copy of the audiobook because he couldn't read, right? So even like a free digital version, he just couldn't even access it
Right.
because he couldn't read or write. And he got himself the audiobook version, and he put that on repeat a bunch of times. So that's also something, even if you're doing it passively, like eventually the information kind of like seeps in. um, so that's one of those like last ditch effort kind of things. It's like if you really for whatever reason you're struggling with that. But and this is, just to finish off, this is really where coaching shines, right? Because anyone can sit down, go through the book, get the information, sort out their life, and move on. Now, how long that's going to take someone to do that, that's a very, very personal thing, right?
The spectrum
And
is
that, yeah,
nearly
and
infinite.
and that's where coaching shines, right? Like if you go to a gym and you pay for a personal trainer, like you're not paying for that person to lift the weights for you. You're paying for that person to explain to you exactly what you have to do because he's gone through it, right? He has the experience to tell you, okay, you have to do this, and that. And he will sort through all of it for you. So you don't have to sit down and do those 18 different exercises to find out which one is going to stimulate growth the best, right? That guy's already done the work for you. And that's the same idea here, right? You can sit down, go through the book on your own. You can get a digital copy for free. It'll cost you absolutely nothing. And if you have enough time and energy, you can sort through it and get all the information to you. And on the opposite side of that spectrum, because there's obviously a lot of options, but on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, that's where you call us up, we sit down with you, we do 12 1-hour classes with you and take you through the entire material. It'd take you roughly 40 hours to go through all of it, and we make sure that every single point is addressed. So you don't end up with this little something that you kind of like understood, but it was a bit rough around the edges and you just passed to the next chapter. Like, no, we make sure that you get all the information. So when it comes to your time, that's the best deal, really. When if you find your time to be extremely valuable, coaching is your best deal. If you have lots and lots of time, but you're absolutely broke and you don't have a penny to your name, well, that's where sitting down with the digital version of the book is where people are at. But yeah, I figured I should just throw that out there because I've noticed some people, they just, they won't necessarily realize that the simplest, most straightforward path is coaching, right? Like you can't get simpler than that. All you do is you book 3 appointments a week with one of us, and we give you specific homework. We sort through everything. We make sure that everything's properly understood. And, within a month, you've gone through the whole program. So,
And we can do it in the most personalized way possible that works with your background, your history, your story, your culture, whatever it is, like your circumstance and whatever your goals might be. So
exactly. And we don't have the clock on either, right? So it's not like, 59 minutes, we're going to have to address that in the next section. Like,
I can guarantee no one here has done that.
Yeah, we don't do that. You have 40-minute sessions, or you have like 90-minute sessions, and you have everything in between. Whatever is needed in order for that lesson to be properly absorbed, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
So
we want you to be headed in the right direction. We want you to understand this stuff. Selfishly, I feel great whenever people get this stuff and are able to move on with their lives. I love to see it. It makes me so happy. So, yeah, that's like you said, that's where coaching shines. Nobody's gonna leave you standing there just empty-handed. Like there won't, or stuck on some hurdle or some chapter somewhere. Like,
yeah. No, and I heard a really nice coaching story today, actually, when I was talking with Mark, and so he got a letter from someone who came through the retreat a decade ago. And so he came through the retreat, and he got all the information, everything was fine, but then he just went, he left the retreat, and apparently things went a little bit better for a little while, and then he went south again. And now he gets this letter basically 10 years later where this guy is saying, things went south. And then there was this point where I kind of like sat down and reflected on what was going on. And I remembered what you guys taught me. And I turned around and I switched my life. I flipped it on 180, right? Because he wasn't burdened with all this misinformation where it's like, oh my God, you're going to have to spend endless hours in going into treatment and recovery. And, you got to do 90 and 90 and then 1 meeting a day for the rest of your life. And you're going to have a sponsor, and you got to sponsor at least 3 guys at a time and blah, blah, blah. None of that. Like he learned that you're doing this because you enjoy it. For whatever reason, you're seeing benefits in your substance use. And the day that you see more benefits in no longer engaging in that behavior, that's what you're going to do. And there's going to be no effort whatsoever because you're just going to make a decision and move on. And, having that understanding, he got to that point where it's like, you know what, I have to make a change. And he made a change and it worked out. So yeah, we love hearing those stories, and I thought I would share the story that I heard a few hours ago that I was like, because I was talking about discussions with students and stuff, and how how the most important thing is really to make sure that someone has absorbed the information, right? What they do with the information, that's on them. That's their decision. That's their life. As long as they have the information, that's what matters, because the moment that they're going to be at that place where they want to make a decision, they're properly informed, right? So they can make a well-informed decision.
Right.
So anyways, we've been rambling on for quite some time. I feel like I won't shut up.
Yeah, we're at a little bit over an hour, so we almost hit the hour.
So, yeah.
But that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
You have something else to add?
No, we had so many questions because we haven't been on for 3 weeks now.
Right.
So obviously, for everyone who's watching, if we didn't answer your question and you really want it answered, please bring it back to us. And the easiest way to get us to answer your questions is either put them down in the box here, right, in the YouTube. In the YouTube comments. We will definitely address that first thing, or every Wednesday before the Q&A, I ask people in the Facebook group, what do you guys want us to address? And so obviously, you know, if you ask 10 minutes before the show, it might not end up on the show. But you know, if you go there like an hour or two in advance, we do our best to make sure that stuff is addressed first.
Right.
So yeah, that's that for the next one. Our next one is in 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
It will be on the 21st, so it'll be close to Christmas, December 21st.
Yeah.
Other than that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. There were a couple people here in the YouTube comments that I interacted with. We got Beth and Vicky. I want to thank you guys for your engagement and for being here with us, and everyone else that watched. Again, you can catch us again at the same time, same places on December, what was it? I said December 21st.
21st. Yeah, 21st.
Our email addresses are below both of our heads. If you have any other questions, you can DM us on Facebook as well, or post them in the Freedom Model group. All the information you need about the program can be found at thefreedommodel.org. Whether that be coaching, the online program, the book itself. We offer physical versions and the audiobook, like Daniel talked about. Daniel, help me out here. Take over. What else we got?
Well, if you guys go to thefreedommodel.org, you can get like you were saying, you can get the digital version by entering coupon Freedom 100. You can register for the online program. So if you need a little bit more than the book, Mark and Michelle go through everything in digital format. It's 65 videos, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Plus, you have access to the audiobook, the workbook, and your first month of, I forget what it's called now, but basically the newsletter and what we learned this week lessons. Because every week we throw out a little nugget that, you know, each one of the instructors goes through a little something for the members. And yeah, I'm not sure if we've set that up yet, but I think if someone's struggling with certain parts of the online program, they can contact us to get a specific lesson on that class. But I'm not 100% sure about that. So if someone for whatever reason, if you're part of the online program and you're struggling with stuff, you can either ask on the Q&A that's at the end of the month with Mark and Michelle, or you can request a class with us. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure about that one, so I'm going to I put a bit of a caveat, just confirm beforehand.
Other than that, I think that's everything, right, Daniel?
Yep, I do believe so.
So catch us next time. We look forward to speaking to any of you in the meantime, or to interacting with you on the 21st. Other than that, I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope your Thanksgivings were good as well.
Hey, give me 1 second.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking to me.
Yeah, no, it's my cat. My cat is asking for the door.
Anyway, that's all we got. So everybody have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will see you then.